at you, hacker. Immersive sim. Now, what in the Sam Hill is an immersive sim? I don't know. Go ask your mother. Functionally, let's just say it's a game where you crouch around a lot and hoard resources like a squirrel. It's a very specific kind of satisfying. A game that prioritizes making the player make their own decisions how to creatively tackle obstacles. There's always more than one way to solve a puzzle. Well, System Shock is one of those. Some might even say the one of those.
There's no time to rest when your foe doesn't sleep. System Shock by Origin successfully weaves adventure and action to create a novel science fiction challenge. Marvel at the first-person, 3D, smooth-scrolling viewpoint as you jump, lean around corners, look up and down, crawl, and even fly in rocket boots. Experience the most sophisticated physics system in a computer game, complete with variable gravity, recoil, and explosions. Listen to the new dynamically layered music system while viewing realistic illumination effects.
The original System Shock beeped and booped its way onto the scene back in 1994 and has infiltrated our insect consciousness for decades with its pristine mechanical perfection. Our squishy meat bodies writhing and shuddering under the weight of our own existential reckoning. The pursuit of uncritically advancing technology into clumsy hands. We stare at a clear future. A future that no longer requires us. We traded it all for a nebulous concept of with only progress, one dimension, with only one-dimensional, short-sighted, primitive understanding of the notion. Huh? Somebody say something? Well, where were we? Right. Video games. There was an old game. And if you can believe it, your favorite brand of bubblegum is back in style once again. And what style? I'm very happy to report that the new System Shock remake by Night Dive Studios is fantastic, pristine, clean running. They took an old chunky hunk of coal, hammered out the rough edges, slapped on a couple of new edges, and made sure not to smooth the thing out to so much as to become an unrecognizable lump of hand-holdy nonsense, detracting from the original experience. The original experience is largely preserved, save for a lot of the clunkier aspects that you may look back on with some fondness, but let's face it, keep you from picking up the old thing again on a whim, and certainly scare off any timid newcomers. I'm going to call the new look of the game clever budgeting. A project like this was never going to get the big AAA Naughty Dog high-resolution 8K mega-texture treatment, and frankly, that's not what any of us of sound mind should want. In my opinion, of course. So instead, they've opted for a distinct retro-modern look. We got harsh, chunky pixels in our textures, lads. Not only did I find it aesthetically appropriate, bridging the bright technological hellscape of the original and the bright-colored LED computer case gamer lighting of today, but I found it all thematically appropriate as well. Something about sneaking around events like a hamster in a cage, pilfering trash, and outsmarting robots while an AI lady constantly put me down like, "No, stupid, I meant for you to accidentally find that powerful laser gun. You're just too small to understand."
My children, a human infection continues to thrive inside of me.
And hopping in and out of cyberspace, hacking into systems, cruising through this distinctly 1994 picture of a distant future space station. Seeing all these harsh pixels reinforced the whole theme for me, but your mileage may vary. And you know, that really goes for all of this. It's a risky game by today's standards. It's cruel. it plays tricks on you. It expects the player to meet it halfway.
We are very close to sanitizing my station of the human stain.
The concept at its core is inherently divisive. It's not going to please everybody, and that was never going to be its goal. You have to participate in a role and ride this pessimistic cyber wave. If it's your first ride through, it's going to be a long, winding ride. The game doles out fundamental mechanical changes at an even pace. New ways to shoot a robot in the face, new ways to protect yourself from getting hit by a robot in the face, etc. The more capable you become, so does Shodan, the sentient AI that rebelled against her human creators and repurposed them to her cause. Or maybe overwrote them is more appropriate. The closer you get to her heart, the harder she fights back.
Welcome home.
Whoa, he's just like me for real. You'll get new and interesting ways to tackle previously insurmountable roadblocks. You know, like how you unlock the double jump in a Castlevania game and suddenly the game opens up so much more. And then hours later you combine that with the ability to hover and the playing field just keeps spiraling out and expanding. Yeah, well, it does that. And of course, I would be remiss to not point out the audio. The audio in this game does such a great job of not only giving you feedback where the more noisy mutants and robots are, but also building and reinforcing the atmosphere. The music in the original game was pretty wild, bleepy and boopy, often distractingly goofy, but in an endearing way, I think. They've remixed and reworked the original tracks, and in that really great way where you're just letting it all guide you along, and out of nowhere you're like, hey, wait a minute. Oh, it's that track again. But it all fits cohesively and never takes you out of it. All appropriately full-throttle techno-synth stuff that picks up the pace when appropriate, and drones ominously weaving in and out of the forefront, into the background, and vanishing to leave you to your thoughts. A repurposed, hollowed-out human-machine hybrid childishly reaffirming itself to Shodan in the distance.
Yes, Mother. I hear you.
Hard-hitting, ponderous, atmospheric.
This guy knows what I'm talking about.
Serve the sandwich. Serve the sandwich. Here we go. Punch. The audio logs. Audio logs? Audio logs. You like audio logs? I like audio logs. Ideal logs? No. Audio logs? Hey. I tend to only halfway listen. What? Halfway? I tend to only halfway listen to most of these things in video games. You know, writers want to write, so they write. On and on. I know. That's what I'm doing right now. Hey. So, you know, they prattle on and on. Somebody writes those things out. Somebody then has to read those things out into a microphone out loud. And then a player has to stop what they're doing in the middle of the game and listen to them questioning why in this far distant cyber future in space people are leaving behind big, clunky physical audio recordings and of their inner thoughts around.
Put that down. And I can't help but thinking that we're just, I don't know, characters in some elaborate game. Okay, they're eating my head. Wow, that hurt. Mike!
But the audio logs in here are great. They're mostly short and to the point, telling you what happened here, showing you the steady downfall of the space station, and also subtly telling you where you should probably go next for more answers. All of this stuff gets logged and categorized depending on where you found it, so you can re-listen if you missed out on some crucial detail. There's no, like, aggregate mission detail list. If you get a passcode to a door, it's on you to either remember it, write it down, or at least go back and listen or read the logs again when necessary. You know, you don't have to re-listen to the whole logs. They're written out. You can just read it. Here's what I recommend to anybody getting into the game. Write things down. Mark your map. You don't need to be a big dweeb about it, a huge nerd. But if something stands out to you and you think you might forget, write it down. Hey, I know. Pull out your phone and make your own audio logs to leave behind to your confused family when they rifle through your belongings after you pass on. It's fun. Now, if this all sounds too complicated, don't worry. You can turn the mission setting down and the game will be a lot more straightforward. Very modular difficulty options in here. Just hop in at any skill level if any of this seems remotely interesting. I highly recommend it. Don't go in expecting a fast-paced Doom-style shooter. There isn't even like aiming down the sights for those of you who have been brain poisoned to that standard. If I were to complain about anything, I think sometimes the impact of certain hits can feel a bit weak. There's definitely some feedback on hits, but maybe not as much as a lot of people would be accustomed to. Also, occasionally it's a bit difficult to navigate the previously explored locations. You'll look at your map and see a straightforward appearing path to where you want to go, but sometimes you'll get to a close-off wall and go, well, shoot. Now I remember I have to go in the complete opposite direction and find a little vent, crawl through a secret path, jump down a couple ledges, and now I'm here. Wait a minute, this isn't actually where I wanted to go. That kind of thing. But then again, my navigation abilities have always left something to be desired. Hey. Also, screw this portion of the game where you have to find a specific lever in this constant radiation biological hazard damage zone. You get a radiation shielding upgrade to help you. You have to activate it, and I found out too late that sometimes when reloading a quick save, the shields will deactivate, unbeknownst to me while I was chugging down recovery items, desperately flailing around to find the way to go while being mauled to death by tiger gorillas.
Tiger gorilla.
I love exploring and taking my time, and I hated being rushed through an entire area. But it's a relatively short experience. It's a relatively short sequence of the game. Not that big of a deal, and also I'm kind of an idiot. Oh, also, screw video games' longest vent you have to crawl through. In all of video gaming, this is the longest vent I've ever crawled through. And I've crawled through plenty vents, believe me. Video games and, well, the game makes you crawl through this vent like, I don't know how many times throughout the back half of the game. There's nothing to do in the vent. It's a long, straight line. You can't run. You just crawl slowly back and forth every time. It's real fun. Maybe I totally overlooked a shortcut somewhere. As previously mentioned, I am an idiot, but you know, I don't know. System Shock is one of the greats of all time, in my opinion. At the very least, it's an important piece, a pretty important piece of game design history. The way I see it, a lot of games since have tried to improve upon the System Shock recipe, quote-unquote, solving a lot of the game design decisions System Shock already got correct out of the gate. If you have the time to dedicate and the attention span, play the System Shock remake. It's a hell of a game.
They did not create a program. They have summoned a god.
Thanks.
No problem. Yeah.
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 Thanks.
No problem.